We're screen cap.
So if you're working on a small computer, it might not be convenient for you to drag and drop. So what you can also do is right click, go to import, and then find your footage. So I'm gonna do that for audio. And then I don't think there's any. You could also no, you can't go down to new. So
you
yeah.
can double click on.
Oh yeah. So you can also double click. There's a ton of ways to import. So just grab all your stuff. So does everyone have audio, video, and other resources in their project there? Is anyone super confused? Cool. So remember when I made you guys make folders? We're gonna do that again. But in Premiere they call them bins because Adobe's weird. So what you can do is you can right click and go to new bin. And this is gonna be for our sequences, which if you don't know what that is, it'll make sense in a moment. You could just name it sequences, but I like to call it underscore because it'll auto put that to the top because underscores are one of the first characters in Unicode. Don't worry about what that means, but it's alphabetically the first one. And then I don't think we need any other bins, so this is probably good. So we are going to get some stuff going. So we have a ton of video and we have a ton of audio.
We got a hand up.
So, all right. So we have some video here, and we have some sync audio. So basically, this video has scratch audio on it that we don't want to use because it was recorded on the crappy ME64s that are on the cameras. And then this is some nice, luscious, high-quality Tascam audio, but they're not together. So we're gonna fix that. So normally now, I would say go through all your footage, watch it, and name it. I'm going to show you real quick how to do that, and you can kind of do it while I'm explaining. I don't want to just sit here and have us do that because that might take a minute.
You should really name the files so you more not the stuff in Premiere. But yeah.
Why would I name the files?
Organizing outside. Yeah.
I tried to correspond it. I renamed it so the numbers correspond with.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, I think they do.
So if you double click on anything in your project panel, it'll bring it up into your source monitor, which is probably going to be located around here, and you can take a look at it. So we'll double click on this first one and watch it.
Well, you can peek from around the corner.
Okay.
You can just keep the mic there.
So as we can see, production team didn't do a great job, but that's all right. So let's see where this is going.
Production team.
So some handy shortcuts you might want to know now. Don't worry about memorizing these, but J, K, and L. K will pause, L will fast forward. If you keep clicking it, it'll go faster, and J will reverse and do the same thing. Really handy for when you're watching 4 hours of something funny and nothing interesting is happening. So this isn't really.
I think at the end of the clip, it's like an actual usable clip.
Anyways, we ask people.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's see what this is.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, and welcome back to TSRBC. I'm Nicole Pimentel, and it's all about survival of the fittest today. So we ask people, what do you think is the likelihood you'd survive a horror movie?
All right, so we could name this intro. So what you can do is double click on the name, or if you highlight it and you hit return, it will go into the rename function. So we can call this intro. It's always good to put like an 01 at the end in case you look at your footage again and then there's an intro too. And yeah, so we can go through. Normally you would go through and do this for all your clips. So some of you might have done this already.
All
right, I'm rolling.
So we can see here.
Thanks, guys.
They did another take of it. So I could call this intro underscore 02. And then we could go, oh, look, it's me. I didn't even know I was in this.
4, 3, 2.
Is this going to be embarrassing?
Yeah.
I don't really have
So as you could probably hear, like, this audio is crap. I can't even hear what I said, and I was there. So, but we're gonna go through, and we'll name this Ethman 01. And then let's grab one more. David Petka. Yeah.
All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, we'll name this David. So I'm gonna grab those few. You can go through and pick all of them if you want. Find the ones you want, but for the purpose of this demo. So Rebecca told us that she corresponded the audio to the video, which is really handy because usually that won't happen on production. So I'm gonna go through and quickly rename these also to be the same names as our video file. So this way, when we try to link them, it'll be easy. And something handy you'll notice is when you're renaming, if you keep hitting return, it'll go down to the next one and prompt it so you can not even have to touch your mouse, which is optimal. So is anyone confused? Everyone on the same track? Everyone good? Cool. So now we're gonna go and sync this audio together. So this is gonna get a little complicated. So if you have questions, raise your hands. So we'll start with this one. So something, actually, let's not start with that one because I don't think. So something interesting that's about this footage is they didn't have a slate. So there's gonna be no marker for us to see where the slate in is. So that happens. I edited an entire CP2 that didn't have any slates. It's not fun, which is why production needs to make sure that they add slates, but they didn't, so I'm going to show you how to do it now without it. So basically, we can't, like, the guy who was recording on the task cam and the guy who was using the camera, they all record at a different time, so the files are different. So we need to find, like, a reference point to determine where to, like, say, like, okay, this is where these clips line up. So usually when there's a slate, you can watch their hand clap or the slate clap and then line up the peak of the audio with where the hand is like hitting together. So I think we have them counting now 1, 2, 3, which might be enough, or we might just have to guess. So let's watch this and see.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm rolling.
Thanks, guys.
But
Not even action.
This is embarrassing.
she did like kind of make a noise with her foot, so I'm gonna try that. So this might be a little out of sync, but if that happens to you, tell your director that they need to do a better job next time. So now we're gonna go over to our intro clip, and this is the audio, as we can see because there's no video, and we're gonna try and find something to sync in. So she kind of has this like breath that might probably be our best bet with this. So this little slider down here, we can kind of scale this to make more sense. So what you want to do is take your playhead and put it on like a part that you might think would be the best. Usually if it's clap, it'll just be like one like line going up. That's really easy to line up. So now that we have our reference point, we're gonna take our finger and hit I, and that's gonna put an in point. Now conversely, you can also go to the end of this and hit O, and that's gonna be our out point, but we don't need an out point right now because we're just trying to sync the footage. So I'm gonna go and just put that out point at the end. So now we're gonna go back to the corresponding video footage, and we're gonna do the same thing. So, so this is our audio. Ooh,
Oh.
a lot of cables down which you'll see. So we're gonna try and like find the peak of the audio there, and that will help us out with this. So
So I think, and this is kind of a good example of why the fix it and post mentality. It's like a really
It's
like
bad.
simple
Yeah.
example that why that's bad. So if somebody would have had a slate or at least clapped in the shot, it would have saved us a lot of time.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I didn't do it.
Exactly.
To
So-
teach everyone.
So we have our endpoint, like the endpoints get saved even when you click off the footage. So we have our endpoint on our intro, and we have our endpoint on our audio. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select one of them and hit Command, and then click on the other one,
Good guess.
and then we're gonna right click. Oh, jeez.
Why don't you just look at the wave?
You can't just look at the
Is this
waveform
not?
post.
Hold on. I hate
I mean,
Macs.
I usually just do it all the
Both in
time.
the timeline.
If your mouse, it does have secondary buttons. What's going on?
I usually sync it on the timeline,
Yeah, that's what I
but
Yeah, but that's not.
that's not right.
This is being silly. Okay, so make sure you're right clicking on the name. I always forget that. And
Yeah.
then what
Adobe
we're
products are persnickety about that.
gonna do is go to merge clips.
So he's merging.
And then we're gonna get this little window, and you can leave it as merge if you think you're gonna know that that means it's sync sound. If you're not, you might want to put like sync. I don't think that's how you spell sync.
Sync.
But yeah, and now this is just gonna throw it somewhere in your bin. It's just gonna put it somewhere random. So we're gonna make a new bin and call it sync, and then we can throw that in there. Did that confuse anyone?
Yes.
Cool. So we're gonna do it a few more times. Hopefully with some better clips.
The worst part is they won't be syncing audio for like 30 minutes.
I know, but now they'll know before it
Yeah.
happens.
They're gonna be fun.
Alright, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
So she counted down on this one, so hopefully it's a little easier.
Let 'em blast it.
So we're gonna go to that in here, and then let's see. Oh, it doesn't look
They all
that
have their
much.
headphones in or trying to sync while it's on at the same time. Just bring up the level.
Yeah, this actually might not be the right audio.
I think it is.
You need intuition to survive. Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Not at all.
Why?
Let's see if it's more.
Sound speed. Alright, in 5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, that was really loud. So hopefully this one works.
Do you think you'd
So like,
you'd survive?
Mm-hmm.
That's accurate, right?
So maybe that laugh would be a good one.
Always do a slate.
Moral of the story.
Real loud. So
Could be ways to sync it.
again, this one's kind of hard to figure out where the endpoint is. So we're gonna hit I on something that might sound like something that would work for an endpoint, and then we're gonna.
So it's left button up.
Sound speed.
why is the audio?
Oh, okay, yeah. So.
So, all right. So the sync sound on this one's pretty hard. So let's see how this one worked out.
Alright, I'm rolling.
Sound speed.
Alright, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
I don't think I would survive.
I think that looks right.
Alright, I'm rolling.
Sound speed.
5, 4,
Oh.
3, 2, 1.
Do you think you'd survive?
The camera audio is still in there. I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I forgot something important. When you're merging these clips, remember to do remove audio from AV clip.
Wait, how do you merge? Where's the merge?
What if you've already merged it?
You can delete it and redo it. Sorry about that.
So.
Do you think you'd survive?
Yeah, these are not. Let's see if this one's any better. Oh, well, that one I didn't do that. So sometimes your sync sound just doesn't work, and that's something that's going to be a reality of production. So in that case, you're going to either have to talk to your production team about re-recording, or you might just use camera audio. So I'm going to say for this that we're going to try and use camera audio. But I'll also show you another method of syncing that's not as professional, but might be a little better for something like this. So we're gonna start with going over how to create a sequence. So the best thing to do there's a few ways to do this, just like importing footage. So you can go down here and click a new sequence, but what does any of that mean? I have no idea. And I'm a junior. So these are all like preset codecs and stuff. It's silly, don't worry about it. Get out of here, don't do that. Take your footage, drag it down to this little happy little note, or drop it in here.
Or in the timeline.
And there, you'll get a sequence. And again, Premiere's just gonna drop it in here, so we gotta organize that. So what
So
would
and
we
notice what the icon looks different than the footage, right? So it
Yep.
tells you it's a sequence.
There's an icon, it's
It's
green.
colored. Yes. There you go.
And yeah, so what will we call this? We'll call it cut 01. Sometimes you might just want to name it the same thing as your project. Sometimes if you have multiple sequences, you might want to specify them. That's why I like to make a folder. So take that, throw it in there, so it's not in with our video, and then we have our nice little sequence.
John Scott apparently has like 500 sequences.
Yeah, because John's
And what's the advantage of creating a sequence off of a piece of footage?
So when you create it off a piece of footage, all of that complicated words that came up on that last one, Adobe figures it out for you. It figures out the specifications of the footage, and it applies that to the sequence. Because the sequences can't just exist in a vacuum. They have relevant information to the type of video that it is. So can someone go help over there?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What happens if you just pull the footage onto the sequence?
So if you don't have one in here and you just pull some footage in,
Yeah.
it's the same thing as dragging it down here and creating a new sequence. It'll do it automatically.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just get rid of that.
Do you?
Oh, it's the word. It is out.
So now that we have this sequence, I'll show you guys a somewhat easier method for some people of syncing sound. So we can take
Ethman.
my footage here, make this a little bit bigger.
It was all from the same session, so you know that you're using the same camera.
Yeah. And then we'll just resize this. And what do we have here but some scratch audio waveforms? So we can kind of try to eyeball our audio and see if this works. I feel like, is this even the audio for me?
You can take the audio one before we model.
Oh my god, did it sync up?
That's actually pretty close.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Wow.
Wow, that was lucky.
Did it cut off early? Oh no.
Just put up the level of audio too.
Yeah.
It's
What?
already quiet.
Raise the levels.
Raise the level of audio.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
might be. I'm not a good sound person.
Yes, it's pretty loud.
Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Wow.
Not at all.
Why?
I don't think I'd have enough intuition for it.
It's close.
I don't remember
I need
saying
intuition.
it. They just came up to me while I was at work and were like, hey, can you do this?
Wow, doing homework on the job, Ethan.
I was probably waiting for that. So if y'all see down here, we got a little peak here, and we got a little peak here. Can you in the back see that? I can move it up if not. So that's something that we can try to line up. So we can take our playhead, put it over this one, get real close in here, and then move that over.
It's just
And if it's if it's a frame or two off, it's not super noticeable.
If you have a number pad, you can work it.
With what button?
I forget.
thanks.
There, that's it. Whatever you're doing, you're typing. So do plus
Yeah.
plus
Oh my
point. Do plus 2 and only plus 2 frames.
Let's see how in sync this is. 'Cause
Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
not at all.
Why?
I don't think I'd have enough intuition for it. Alright, so if you do this method, what you're going to want to do now is highlight your video, right click, go to unlink, and that will take the audio and the video and separate them. Because otherwise, if you do have it linked, which is denoted by this little V, they should move together. Like that. But if you unlink them, you can delete this and it won't delete your audio. And then you can carefully bring this up, highlight them, and then link. And then they'll be together. Awesome. Perfect. Everything's great. Our footage is amazing. Look at that composition.
Who's confused?
Cool.
Do you think you
So, who needs admin help before we move on? Anyone? Alright, cool. So what you can also do now is trim your footage. So if you take these sliders on the side, you can trim your footage so that you have
Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
something like that.
Not at all.
Why?
I don't think I'd have enough intuition for it.
And you need intuition to survive.
And then what you can also do, if you have your playhead over like a certain section, you can go to this razor tool and click. And that will create a cut, and then we can get rid of that. And now we have a nice little segment that we can use for our footage. So I don't really want this footage to be alone in the timeline. I want like an intro or something. So I'm gonna grab one of these intro clips.
Alright, in a 5.
Jeez, that's loud.
Yeah.
So we'll go over one more way of bringing footage into the timeline. So we can view our footage in our source monitor. I'm not going to sync sound for this one, but normally you would if everything was nice and dandy.
Is that bad?
Why is she whispering so much?
'Cause that's the
And today we
goal.
are on the scene.
So if you remember our in and outs, what we can do is
Thanks, guys, and welcome back to TSR on the scene. I'm
Find the
Nicole
end of
Pimentel,
this.
And today we are asking people, do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Alright, in a 5, 4, 3.
and then we can hit O, and we'll get we'll get this clip. So what we can do is we can take this and drag it down onto our timeline. If you only wanted the video, you can drag this. If you only want the audio, you can drag that. But I want them together, so I'll get rid of those. And yeah, so now we have a little intro clip.
Thanks, guys, and welcome back to TSR on the scene. I'm Nicole Pimentel, and today we are asking people, do you think you'd survive a horror movie? Let's check it out. Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
So that's
That's
some
a
weird
joke.
audio. So what we can do is take these. This bar represents volume, and we can bring this down a little bit, and we can bring this one up as much as possible. And yeah, see if that sounds a little better. Ooh, I can't even hear it.
Mental, and today we are asking people, do you think you'd survive a horror movie? Let's check it out.
So we might need one more thing. We can add an intro graphic. So we can move this over a little bit, go to other resources, see if we have anything cool.
Oh, look how
Whoa,
cool that is.
Look at that motion graphics and animation. And we can take that and we could drag it in like this. We could drag it in from up here. You could hit one of these handy dandy inserts.
5, 4.
Ah,
However you want to get the footage in, do it. I'm just going to drag it in just to make sure.
Yeah, so I believe.
So if you have something annoying like this space in the middle, what we can do is click on that and do ripple delete, and it'll get everything together. That's a little advanced, but it's just a handy tip.
That ripple delete.
I know about it for I used Premiere for 3 years and didn't know about it.
what?
You're just like shift snap.
There's also music.
So this is starting to look more like an actual video.
Wow.
So why don't we add some audio?
Some more. That's really loud.
Yeah.
Is anyone lost?
Who's confused?
Anyone just
Raise your hand. It is okay to be.
All right, and then what we can do is bring this audio down a little bit, and I'll show you one more little fancy thing. If we take this pen tool here, we can mess around with these keyframes, fade out that audio real nice and dandy. I'll have it be a little bit under. And we can see that'll slowly go down.
Yeah.
Alright, it's a little bit
Thanks, guys, and welcome back to TSR on the scene. I'm Nicole Pimentel, and today we are asking people, do you think you'd survive a horror movie? Let's check it out. Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Yeah. Alright, in a 5.
So cool, that looks pretty alright. We can come over here to the end, take our razor tool, cut that boy, get rid of this stuff at the end, maybe bring our music up a little bit at the end, And yeah, maybe add a swoosh transition. Cool. So now you guys can mess with this however much you want, but I'm just gonna show you how to export real quick, and then we have like 20 minutes left. I'll leave. Maybe admins can come around and we can target more specific things that people wanted to talk about. So yeah, we'll go to export real quick. So when you're exporting, make sure you're selected on your sequence, because it will select the sequence that you have like targeted in the timeline, and you can tell if a panel's targeted by if it has blue around it. So we're gonna go to File, Export, Media. You can also hit Command M because you're gonna be doing this a lot. And we're gonna go to there, and it'll load for a minute, and then we'll get some crazy stuff that seems really intimidating. So basically the go-tos, especially at Ithaca, if you're doing like a high quality fine export, we're gonna use format QuickTime. If we're going for something rough, maybe something that's going to get uploaded to the web, we're going to want to do H.264. So the differences between those, H.264. So I'll do that real quick just because that's really handy. H.264 is like magic. It's really, really small files for what they are. It's really good compression. So you can match your source, or if you know you're going to upload to like Vimeo or something, you can go down there. If you are doing QuickTime and you hate your hard drive, you could put it into Apple ProRes 22422HQ. Again, what does that mean? I don't know.
I can't export in ProRes.
Yeah, what is ProRes? What is 422?
So pretty much, this is a type of video codec, which is kind of a way that I guess the footage gets interpreted when we save it, more or less. I don't know if Shayna or Brad want to give a more technical answer to that.
It's a type of compression.
It's a type of compression. But this is really like, this is good for animation. This is good for your high quality exports for your finals. But I'm just gonna do the one with numbers and the letter, and I'm gonna do match source. Something to remember: check that to make sure you got your width and height right and your frame rate right, because sometimes stuff gets messed up if you have weird footage. If it's not, match source usually will figure that out, or you can go in and actually edit these.
If for some reason you have footage of different frame rates and width, it will not conform.
Yeah. So I would say go through and peruse these at some point in your life. Usually match source is good. Check out your audio. If you work on ICTV as an editor, they're going to make you go through and screw all this up because they have really weird stuff. And then...
So I'm running out of space on my hard drive. Why can't I just have all my working files as like H.264?
Because they're bad. H.264, it's not bad, but it's compressed.
Already compressed.
Which means that you're losing some data. This is good compression, so it's going to be less noticeable to us, but you might actually notice it because I'm exporting this in 1920 by 1080, and this is a 4K projector. So we're going to see some issues. So the last thing we need to do is go to output name, double-click that, click on our exports folder, and you can leave it as your sequence name if you think that's what is a good thing. I could name it TSR_segment. I'll do that. Make sure everything's more or less right here. If you're saving in H.264, it's going to be an MP4. If you're saving in QuickTime, it's going to be an MOV. Just different containers. Hit save, and what you can either do is queue it to go into media export encoder, which is if you have like a bunch of exports, you can queue a bunch of them and go to bed and let your laptop do it, or you can just hit export and it'll export right away. And down here it tells you about what it's going to take. So this is only going to be 40 megabytes, which is pretty decent for like a 30-second clip of 1920 by 1080 footage. If we went to QuickTime, we could see what that's going to be. No, it doesn't.
It's like, it's just like good luck.
Good luck. Hope you have enough hard drive space. It'd probably be like a gig or so.
Yeah.
So let's export.
It's like 2 gigs a minute.
And now we wait. which is a really big part of post-production. So make sure you have a good book to read, or you have like Reddit on your phone or something,
Or
because
like a bed.
this is gonna take pretty quick. But when you're like exporting like the thesis, it's gonna take like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I have a
And we can't
comment.
do anything else.
Make sure your computer is
That's
plugged
And don't
in
export
when you're
to your
doing
computer.
because it drains your battery, and if
Yeah,
it
rendering
dies while
is
exporting,
intense.
your export will be corrupted and you'll never be able to use it, and you have to redo it.
If you do have something
What
like
did you say?
Always export to a hard drive.
Yeah.
Rule number 1.
True.
Yeah.
If
Don't like we're having you work on these computers, but never ever put anything on the computer. It's not the worst idea to export onto the computer and then drag it onto your hard drive, because when you're and you can remember, because when you're going from the computer to the hard drive, that USB has resistance and it's going to slow down your export. But if you're doing it overnight, that doesn't really matter. If you're like, crap, I gotta go, you can do it on the desktop and might be low. So cool.
If you have
So
an
once we're done, it'll take us back to Premiere.
SSD, use the SSD.
And you go to our exports, and we can check this bad boy out.
Yeah.
Usually you
Thanks
cut
guys,
that.
welcome back to TSR on the Scene. I'm Nicole Pimentel, and today we are asking people, do you think you'd survive a horror movie? Let's check it out.
Do you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Not at all.
Why?
I don't think I'd have enough intuition for it.
And you need intuition to survive.
Cool. So that's basics of Premiere. So we have a little bit of time left. So is there anything that anyone wants to know more about Premiere that we can maybe do in a future workshop, or we can touch on now? There's coloring, there's titles, there's...
I have no idea.
I don't think you should really do anything else in Premiere, but you can do graphics if you really
Ever
wanted
since they updated
to.
it from the old one, I have no clue
so-
how they work.
This is like for a future thing. How do you put photos in?
Photos?
Yeah.
Still photos?
It would be the same deal as this. Let's see if there's any on the desktop. It would be just like putting in
Yeah.
like a footage, but you might need to go in and adjust like the scaling of the image, which we could go over real quick.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
So have like photos like flying through my hours.
So there's here. I'll introduce one more panel. We won't go over it completely, but this is relevant to what's your name? Angela. So Angela had a question. So there's the effects tab, which is really handy once you get all your stuff assembled. So we have effects over here where we could be like key, and we could get a chroma key. Or we have some generic effects here. So I could go to this footage, and I can mess with where it is. I can mess with how big it is. I could rotate it, and you can also keyframe all of these. So if I wanted this, what's up?
What's a keyframe?
It's the most important frame. So you click on this stopwatch, you get a little diamond. Everything in Adobe products as a keyframe is a diamond. So that will say, here I want these values to be this. And then I go over here, I can add another diamond, and then I can pull her over here. And this will say, from here I want this footage to be here, here I want this footage to be here, your computer, figure it out. I can't be bothered to do this right now.
Thanks guys, welcome back to TSR on the Scene.
So like this is simple,
And
but
today
like
we are asking people,
you
do
can make
you
this
think
really
you'd survive a
complex.
horror movie?
You can't.
Where's
What
the
it would be,
motion
it would be
blur?
F9. Can you just select those and press F9 real quick? I want to see if there's easy.
If they finally work.
Do what?
I want to see
Add
if
a couple keys and then select and press F9.
there's- Right, that's a shortcut, right?
I think so, yeah.
Wait, how do you get it to how do you get a key?
So you can hit the stopwatch to start adding keys.
Activates keys. And then any change of value at whatever point in time.
And then, so you have a keyframe where wherever you start animating.
No, it's not F9. I don't remember what
It might
easy
just
is. You can go in here and do like that shit. Yeah.
Bezier, so
Do
yeah.
you think you'd survive a horror movie?
Not at all.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
it's that easy if
Good.
he's out.
Yeah.
You can also like affect your opacity if you want to layer stuff. If you want to make some trippy experimental stuff, that's cool. You can affect your blend modes.
There is anything?
Yeah.
Right click.
It's like weird.
But I think it's just called auto Bezier, so I don't use the same terminology.
And
for
yeah.
fun.
Great.
Some of these effects and stuff are kind of advanced, but I would highly suggest messing with them. And if you want one, you can take it and throw it onto your footage. and then it'll add it down here. So I would just say play with them. Just like have something you want to do, and get a computer and go do it, and then open up Google because you're gonna have questions and Google will help you. Also, or Park Post Lab, which if you're not in, you should join because we like answering questions. And that's the best way to learn software, in my opinion, is to have something and do it and keep trying until you get it right.
Yep.
So I'm gonna let you all mess around, mingle, talk to admins, raise your hand, ask questions. We have like 10 minutes left, but yeah. Do we know?
Yeah.
General picture.
Like open forum.
So this was a workshop meeting, so I hope you all enjoyed messing around here. Next week we're gonna do just like kind of a general purpose meeting where we can have a little bit more of a conversation. We can maybe have some pitches going on and see what projects. I do know someone who needs to be a text artist if anyone's interested in that. Maybe not you guys because this is intro to Premiere, but and yeah, we'll do some fun stuff there. So, and then hopefully in the future weeks, what else are people interested in? Do we want to do more Premiere? Do we want to go into After Effects? After Effects.
I heard
So we can definitely do. Do you want? Do we were looking for intro to After Effects or advanced After Effects? Or there's so much in After Effects. Intro is fine. We can do intro. So maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after.
Sure.
This is all going to be in the newsletters that go out, obviously. So you can see what's coming up when it's coming up. So yeah, I hope you all learned a little bit or had fun. I'm gonna close this because it's getting bright in my face. If anyone has questions, obviously we have admins going around. And yeah, have an awesome weekend. Thank you all so much for coming. This was a really great turnout. So thank you all.
Have a Park Post night.
Yeah.
Please say that if you did not say
Have a
anything.
Ryan signs his emails with have a defect today.
He only did it once. I want him to do it more.
I thought he did it more than once. I feel like I saw it once.
Definitely did it. Definitely did it. I showed it to him.
Oh boy. Are you still recording?
Oh yeah. How do I stop it?
That thing.